This is the Unspoken Podcast on the Undetermined Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast. I'm Tom Albano, as always, along with Nick Fodera. And we have some special guests with us this week, right, Nick?
Yes, we do. We actually have our first edition of the Unspoken Roundtable. Now, ladies, gentlemen, could you please introduce yourselves to our adoring crowd?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Summer Holmes, second-year PR student here at Hofstra.
My name is Raymond. I'm a first-year Hofstra student.
Hi, I'm Amina. I'm second-year Hofstra graduate PR student.
So it's going to be a little bit of a shorter episode this week, but you know what? We got guests on. This is something we've been wanting for a while. At least a guest other than Nick Morganson.
Yeah, and this is going to be basically rapid fire. We're going to be debating, and more debating.
Oh, God.
Going to be fun. All right. So how are we going to start this off? Well, let's start off with our first topic of the day. NCAA college athletes and payments. Of course, this is a can of worms that has basically been opened in recent years between the successes of certain big-name schools, also licensing issues, the autographs, and, of course, the video games, which are now no longer around because of this issue. So the big question is, should college students get paid? Should these college athletes get paid? And how much? What about the teams and the players, the video game rights, et cetera, et cetera? So let's start off with that. And Raymond, do you want to open things up?
Yeah, sure. I believe that college athletes in general, they deserve to be paid because if you look at all the universities, like the top universities like Syracuse, Indiana, Kentucky, Duke, they get a lot of money from getting these star players to be on national television. And you know how ESPN likes to broadcast, or even CBS likes to broadcast the tournaments, the games each week. I mean, for all we know, the next star athlete is going to come out of one of those colleges into the NBA, and they put a lot of dedication to their sport. It's like 43 hours. According to Listland, actually, they said that spend an average of 43.3 hours dedicated to the sport, and it's not a surprise. I mean, you see most of them don't go to class as much because they're focused on the sport, knowing that they're going to probably be either in the NBA, if it's basketball, or the NFL in a couple years. And, for the professors, they know that as well. So it's almost like that's their life right there. And I think it's time for them to get paid, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did a little bit of research, too, and I was looking at an article by ESPN. Michigan State's Jake Butt, who was heading to the NFL, he described his situation where, they only gave him $900 a month, and $700 of that went to rent. And he only had $200 left for, expensive groceries and gas. And he had to actually ask his father for money to help him get through the month. And his father replied, was like, well, don't they cover that? And he said, oh, yeah, only a little bit. So he said he was fortunate enough to have a parent or family to help him out. But there's a lot of his teammates who don't have that luxury, who are actually sending what little money they have back to their families to pay for their bills. So I think as far as compensation for athletes, they should at least get enough to cover groceries to, they can't work. They don't have time to work. It says that the NCAA allows them to work, but they don't have time to work. They're either sleeping or working. So I feel like there should be a compensation for their whole lifestyle. That's my opinion on it.
And not only that, I know, I went to a big university in Southern Virginia where sports was, everything. And, I mean, some of the revenue these schools make off these athletes are over $100 million a year. And they're not seeing any of that money. Mm-hmm. So that's another aspect in itself. I mean, they're not getting anything, but the school's making a lot of money off of what they're doing, and they're making a lot of sacrifices to bring them that entertainment and that money.
Mm-hmm. Well, were you guys ever student athletes when you guys went to?
Well, I was in high school.
No,
not in college though.
Yeah, high school, but I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, so we're a big sports school. As y'all know, we took the title this year.
Yeah. brag.
Yeah, I used to live next door to all the athletes. I used to live next door to football players, the athletes. And they always tell me about their experiences. Is like, the school doesn't give us that much money, or the school gives us a small stipend that doesn't even cover all the things I need to cover. So, and it's funny, they see their names on billboards, but they can't do anything with that. Like, it doesn't go back to them.
Well, how much money would they get as a stipend?
That's a good question.
That's a good question, because I also read something that said, like, okay, do the star athletes get more money than, the regular athletes? And, do the big programs get more money than, like, maybe track or gymnastics? How do they get paid? So it can be like a slippery slope.
It can be a slippery slope. And I mean, there's two ends to one that, hey, they're paying these athletes basically also a scholarship to essentially say, hey, come play for us. But then it's also they're sacrificing basically their whole college career to basically play for that sport. But then you have right, and then you have the other students, the actual students, the non-student athletes, who are like, hey, that's kind of unfair to us. But then you also, I think it was Summer who said this, you also open up that can of worms of when we talk about college athletes and this problem, we're only talking really football and basketball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what does this mean for the baseball and softball teams? What does this mean for the track teams? So how do you guys think, if you guys feel like that they should be paid, how should this be, divvied up among all the athletes?
Well, the thing is about the other teams is that they're not as popular as basketball or football, and that's kind of the reason why it will be difficult for them to get paid more so than the college basketball players or football athletes, because like we said, they're on ESPN, they're on CBS, they're on other channels. People listen to them on the radio, and most of these college athletes, like, they really know anything about going to class other than sports. I mean, unless you're like a Kevin Durant, who in his first year, he had college and he went to the NBA, but he also had like a solid GPA, like a 3.0. And for those that are getting paid, there should be requirement on your GPA as well. I mean, you don't want to just get paid, then get, Fs and everything, and you think you're going to go into the next level. I think it's a bad look, because then people are going to be like, well, they're just in it for the sport, but there should be some kind of agreement on saying they could get paid, but they have to at least have good grades at the same time.
So you divvy it up equally under schools, or schools that are not as, let's call it, profitable with their collegiate athletics, do they pay more?
I feel like it should be dependent on school and even more dependent on the team, like individual teams, because I don't think it would be financially or fiscally responsible to afford the same money as a number, the top basketball program to like a track program that's, it's doing fairly well. But I feel like each player and each program needs to assess what it has and what kind of money the school brings in for that, and then create some kind of budget or some kind of lifestyle, financial plan for those athletes. Easier said than done, though.
Yeah, easier said than done. It's kind of funny because in my undergrad, basketball is a big sport. And my undergrad, we don't have a football team like Hofstra. But as much as the basketball players, as much as they get the big scholarship and everything, our most successful programs are these programs that wouldn't get such scholarships. It's soccer, it's track, it's wrestling. So that's why I just brought that question up, because it's just funny how sometimes you get these big, scholarships, and now the potential of they get paid, but these athletes who are also successful, more successful than maybe the football, basketball teams at other schools, and they might not see a dime.
And the fact that they can't, the fact that they don't have, these student athletes don't really have a kind of forum where they can, voice their rights. Mm-hmm. I mean, voice their opinions and air their grievances, let's say. It might lead to a lot of, I'm not going to say it would lead to mass exodus of talented players from schools, but I feel like there is a breaking point. Do you feel like there's something there comes a point where collegiate athletes are going, collegiate athletics are going to suffer because people are just fed up of all this?
Well, you're seeing it right now. You're seeing the corruption of what's happening with the NCAA basketball, which is not a surprise. I mean, I think most of these universities, and I'm not saying Hofstra was one of them, but I wouldn't be surprised if they found some kind of if they found some kind of investigation saying what these coaches have done in the past, and no one's really said anything until they have a lot of proof and evidence to the core and to the public, of course, that it could be their downfall. That's why it's kind of a risk because. We're seeing it right now with the NCAA, with the basketball. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if football is into this as well. These coaches, they care about is two things. They care about winning and they care about their program, being up in the next level, being better than most of the other programs in the country. Yeah, and the salary, for sure.
Now, I guess, what are some things that y'all hear as far as arguments against paying them? And do you find any of them legitimate?
I guess the only one that I have heard is kind of, as I mentioned before, from the non-student athlete side of how's that fair to us? When, if they didn't get a scholarship and it was just a stipend, then you could divide, the scholarships more fairly from an academic standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I'm of the opinion where any argument against paying them is 100% BS because it really is. Because these collegiate sports have become an industry unto themselves. You've turned what is supposed to be an institution of learning into a money printing machine. And how the hell is that even? How is that even? I mean, think about if the three of you actually were, if you guys were, collegiate athletes at a big school. And Summer, you've seen this, up close. I mean, would you think it's right that these guys are making money literally hand over fist over your hard work and you're not seeing a damn dime? You got to starve?
Yeah.
So, but it also seems like we could be in agreement that there are certain things that should happen. So either they should get a pay or maybe they should get at least an increased stipend, rights for the promotional. Let's talk about that because we talked about that, the rights for promotional stuff. So the autographs, the video games, especially the video games, considering that was one of the things that brought the video games for the NCAA basketball and football down.
Yeah.
So would you guys be in say that, the athlete should have a right to their image and name?
I think so. That's something, you leave your mother's womb with your name and your reputation or your name and title. So, but it gets tricky with the money you would get from it or the source of income, I guess, for that. That's where it gets a little tricky because some people think these college athletes shouldn't have the responsibility of getting millions and millions of dollars. That should be wait till the NBA for them to do all of that. But what is his name? What's the little kid, one of the Ball's sons' names? The one with the new shoe line?
Lonzo Ball?
It was Alonzo. There was.
No, it's not Lonzo. He's younger.
LaMelo?
Yeah, LaMelo. So, there's probably issues with that in itself, him having a whole line at maybe 16 years old or something. But the thing is, this is what he wants to do. He's probably the youngest business person to release a shoe line, and he should have that right to. And that shouldn't really impede on his, eligibility to play in, the NCAA, because it's his brand. It's his right. He made his money,
Well, if people want their autographs and their pictures, I think they should have a right
to
the revenue that's made from that. I mean, it's theirs. And it's their talent that is why people want that.
Yeah.
Well, I asked that question before because, let me play devil's advocate here. Something similar to the Albano case. Let's say there's a video game out, and you recognize one of the players, and it looks like you. It has the playing ability like you.
Mm-hmm.
If there's voice, it sounds similar to what you would sound like. Wouldn't you say, hey, I kind of want a little, money from that?
Yeah.
Endorsements, if anything, for these college athletes. That's what it is. And you look at it, and the NCAA, it's $11 billion industry. That's much more than what the revenue of the NBA or the NHL is.
Wait, billion with a B, right? Right?
Yeah, billion. 11 billion. And that's not a surprise. I mean, think about it this way. When an NCAA tournament comes up, most people watch that. They don't even care about the other college teams because no one has time to watch every single college game.
Right.
They all watch the tournament because that's where all the big stars are, which means all the big money goes into. which means NCAA is getting more and more money because a lot of viewers are watching it, especially even last year's final. I mean, that one was like one of the best ones. And the year before, I mean, the buzzer beater pretty much sealed the deal. It's one of the great games you ever seen.
We're not gonna talk about it. We're not...
That was a great classic game, though. I mean, you got to admit that at least, even though they lost that way.
It was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
She could reach through the screen and choke you out, Raymond. I think she would.
Basically, yeah. I mean, the NCAA March Madness and the college football, that's where a lot of the money, a lot of the Vegas gambling and everything, all the money goes into that. Let's, I guess, wrap things up here, a part of this segment on this one last question. So I think it was Raymond before, you were talking about KD, and you were mentioning, if a college athlete stays 1 year and then goes to get drafted, it shows that he's only in for the money. And yeah. I mean, only in for the sport and the money. But basically, there's only so few athletes who make it pro.
Yeah.
So you guys think if they, get paid, do you think then that they should get paid on the condition that one and done, two and done are over? You have to stay like 3 years, or you have to graduate. Like, should there be an academic condition?
I think it should be an academic commission, only because you don't want these athletes you want the public to think that these athletes are dumb. I mean, we've seen like in the past where like Derrick Rose failed his SATs and he was having trouble in college, or we've seen where Dwayne Wade didn't even pay attention in class. I mean, some athletes can do it, some athletes don't. I mean, if Kobe Bryant went to Duke, I guarantee you he would have got a 4.0. Because that guy has got a 4.0 since high school, and he's played basketball. And that's how dedicated he is, even in his education and academics. And you can see that from his interviews and everything, that he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. Kobe. LeBron, I mean, he came out of high school. So I don't even know if he went to college, he would be, that productive in the academic side. But every athlete's different. But there should be some kind of requirement. I think 2.5 should be the minimum. I mean, if you get a 3, I mean, for me, if it were my university, I'll get a 3 because at least it proves that you're, at least a B and above student.
I was going to say, that low of a GPA?
Well, you should be surprised because a lot of Division 3s, they say 2.0 for most of these athletes.
Yeah.
And so I think the top ones probably have like a 3 because you want to at least prove to yourself that you're academically balanced and you can still play in the sport.
Yeah. I definitely agree. Yeah, I definitely agree that there should be an academic stipulation. If you get paid, then you need to stay here. Like, for me, till graduation.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, because I mean, like you said, like we talked about earlier, not everybody makes it to the league. So, I don't think there's wrong on putting pressure for these college athletes to graduate and potentially have a background if they don't make it professionally or if they get hurt.
And that's in their favor as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So it seems like we're all in agreement about that subject.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast. We have another segment we want to talk about. Nick, do you want to introduce this topic?
Yes, I shall. It's actually about stadium financing. Now, it's been in the news, I'd say, as long as they've been building NFL stadiums. So really, but this is not by no means specifically what we're going to focus on is public financing of NFL stadiums, because this is a subject that causes major controversy, and this by no means, by the way, is this limited to the NFL. Mm-hmm. It happens in every single major North American sport, even the unpopular ones. You wouldn't think it would happen for hockey, but it happens for hockey. So
it happens for baseball too.
Yeah, it happens for baseball too. Just look at the A's. But what really jumped out at me is you see these guys, these team owners, and every single one of them, they have enough money to buy and sell me. I don't know how many times. They have enough money to buy and sell every single person on Earth at least twice.
That is true. And I mean, the big controversy in these recent times is Las Vegas. You have the Vegas Golden Knights starting up, who went off to a 3-0 start in the NHL, so good on them. But Marc-Andre Fleury, who is now on the injured reserve, well, there goes your season.
And that was fun while it lasted.
Yeah. But now we also have the Oakland Raiders who are looking to move to Las Vegas.
They are going to move to Las Vegas in 2020, actually. Or is it 2020 or 2019?
It was 2019 or 2020, one of those two. I'm not sure which one. But you have this move, all these teams who are looking to move to Las Vegas or an expansion to Las Vegas. Meanwhile, you have stadiums and teams that are struggling, to put butts in seats, basically.
Exactly. I must ask this question to the three of you. If you were in Vegas, if you say you had a weekend to spend in Vegas, and money, you have some money, but the budget's not unlimited. Are you going to go see a sporting event?
That's a good question.
Just honestly, are you really gonna spend time and money to go see a sporting event in Vegas?
No, because Vegas is the biggest distraction of anybody's life, to be honest. I mean, you would literally go to Vegas just to party. I don't think you have time to go to a game. And to be honest, for the sports team itself, that's like home field advantage for them if they're focused in their sport. But the other team that goes into Vegas knowing they're going to party before the game, as most athletes do, then they go into the next day for the game, and they're probably all messed up and everything, and they're like, what's happening? And then, I mean, it's an advantage either way. It could be a disadvantage for the home team as well. But most of the time, you go to Vegas, you're just there to party with your friends and go to clubs and all that.
Congratulations. The three of you are smarter than Mark Davis.
I don't think when people think Vegas, I don't think they think sports.
No, they don't.
Exactly my point. And I'm going to add to Amina's comment. There are teams, as I mentioned before, that are struggling to fill seats. I mean, let's look at the Arizona Coyotes, which I think was one of the worst moves that Gary Bettman has ever made. To move,
That's a long damn list.
To move from Canada to Arizona, which is not a hockey town, and they are struggling to. They only average to fill 3/4 of their stadium. I'm trying to think of other teams. There's the Denver Nuggets. I have a whole list right here from the New York Daily News and from this organization called 24/7 Wall Street. It's a study done. The Denver Nuggets, because let's face it, they were only filling the seats when Carmelo Anthony was around.
Yeah, sure.
Colorado Avalanche. So there are teams that are before we could even consider moving to Vegas, as much as it sounds, like, ooh, sports in Vegas.
Shiny.
Exactly. Ooh, shiny. There are things that, there are teams that we need to focus on first and be like, okay, is it exactly right that this stadium is being financed for this team? Is there more we could do for this stadium? I mean, and then is the location right? I mean, let's look at the LA Chargers. Their new stadium barely gets filled. All you have to do is watch a game on Sunday. We don't even have to tell you that. Mm-hmm. And let's face it, San Diego hates them now for leaving.
Yeah.
LA doesn't want them. Who likes the Chargers now?
It's
a lot of people.
Why, yeah. Go ahead, Raymond.
No, I was going to say that there's not a lot of people, but you can also factor in based on the location as well, because, for the public itself, like if it's Indianapolis, for instance, and their stadium, they mostly have a lot of the money coming from the public. But if it's like New York or New England even, or like you said, like LA, I mean, most of the time they just build it themselves, and they're not getting it from the public, which also hurts.
True.
Oh, that's right, Nick. You did find something before.
It's not public. Look, you would think the Dallas, right? So Jerry World, AT&T Stadium.
Right.
Yeah.
I found an article in Fox Sports that said, so it was the first billion-dollar football venue in the United States, the first one. So $444 million of the money used to build that stadium was from the public, meaning taxes and, basically sucking up money like a giant vacuum from every single corner of public life.
Really?
You wouldn't think that a major metropolitan city like Dallas or a gazillionaire like Jerry Jones would need to pay for that, but
interesting.
Apparently he is, and it happened with the Yankees. When they built the new stadium in 2009, at least of at least, I think, $200 million of that was paid towards with public financing, and that it is probably the biggest lie in professional sports that, oh, if you help us pay for this, we can actually contribute to the community, which is, again, BS, because, hey, you're taking money out of schools, you're taking money out of public education, you're taking money out of parks.
Tax.
It's like, hey, my kids can't go to school, but I can catch a Raiders game at 3:00.
And I don't know if a World Series ring will pay for education.
But tax, you can put tax into that as well. I mean, they get most of the money from people who just pay a lot of tax, and they use that for that money. Even possibly the funds from the city itself. I mean, they don't say anything, but I know they use part of that budget, because there's always a budget when you have a city, and they're going to put some money towards a stadium or sports, because that's entertainment, and that equals more money for them and for the city. But it doesn't help, like you said, schools and people that are going to college or something like that.
Right.
Exactly. And it's the reason why Stan Kroenke is basically Satan in a bad toupee.
And now this LA stadium, I think you and I were talking about this not too long ago, Nick, is supposedly it's privately financed too? Well, it's privately financed.
The Inglewood Stadium that the Chargers are going to play in is entirely privately financed.
And yet it's experienced a delay, and I don't know if it's going to live up to the hype that it has.
Due to mud, I think, is the reason why they were delaying the stadium, or some other such reason.
It's this weird, stupid reason, but as much as we have the problems here, and also here's one that also irritates me. So Atlanta's attendance has gone down. At the Atlanta Braves, I'm talking about. And yet they replaced just recently their 20-year-old stadium. Turner Field was only 20 years old, and they said, you know what, screw it. So we have this new modern stadium, and we want all these accommodations. We want, a big kid zone, and we want all these high-priced beers, and we want luxury seats, and we want golden toilets.
You had to bring in the golden toilets, didn't you?
I have to always bring in the golden toilet. You're the one who started the golden toilet, by the way, Nick.
I've created a monster. I really have.
You have.
God, it's...
But my point, it's not about the game anymore with these publicly financed stadiums. And it kind of irritates me a little as a big sports fan. Like, it's understandable but to get more people in, but it's a little irritating, don't you think?
I have to ask you this question, because you guys talk about the whole public funding and from the stadiums and everything. Do you think that doing this also affects, people that could go homeless or just, not exactly have a comfortable place to live in? Because, we look at Cleveland, for instance, right? And you know how LeBron, when he left, everything wasn't the same. I mean, literally their whole financial place was just down. And then when he came back, they suddenly become like one of the richest cities. And it's almost because the athlete's influence and what he does to the community and, of course, himself kind of elevates everybody to not only get more money, but also help the stadium out. Do you think that's something to do with that?
Well, as I mentioned before, the Denver Nuggets were only big in filling up their arena.
It's Carmelo Anthony.
2011.
Yeah.
And in Cleveland, yeah. And in Cleveland, it was a LeBron economy, a LeBronomy, if you will. And
that's true, though.
If you wrap that much of it into one player, of course you're not going to succeed, because
as I said before,
and they get traded and they retire.
As I said before on a previous episode of the podcast, it was a different topic because we were talking more about success of a franchise in terms of wins and stuff. But still, one player a team does not make, or in this case, one player a long, successful franchise in one city does not make. You should have, there should be multiple eras. But I want to end with one other thing, because as much as we have the problems here in the United States, that does not, supersede a problem we have with certain organizations. Number one, FIFA, and number two, the IOC, which one of my favorite shows, Chief Seats joked as the International Bribe-Taking Committee.
It is. They make NFL ownership look like a gaggle of choir boys. They do. They're like a pack of Mormons compared to them.
To me, the IOC and FIFA are the bigger problems when it comes to the Olympics and to the to the World Cup, and the building of these stadiums and all these different arenas for this that are only going to be used for this event, it's a burden on the public. I mean, here's the 2018 FIFA World Cup, the one that's going to be in Russia in a couple of months. It wasn't going to be, I can't say it wasn't going to be much, but it was only going to be, I think, $2 or $3 billion, the original projection. It's up to $10 billion in spending.
Wow. It's a lot. It's a lot of
the
money.
cost for the Tokyo Olympics, that just increased to $17 billion. So you have that's a big financial burden on the public. I mean, I love watching the events, but, that's all it's good for is we're watching. When you host it, it's like, oh, great. Maybe we can have increased tourism and, sometimes increased tourism and, all these beautifying the areas, that need beautifying. And sometimes that doesn't always work out.
Which, have you seen Brazil lately?
Right. Brazil.
Oh, my bad.
No.
What is, I know for me, like the Panther Stadium, I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, the Panther Stadium, the Bank of America Panther Stadium. So I guess how do y'all feel like these big companies owning these stadiums affect like the community?
Yeah.
As far as like the cultural authenticity and just how that affects the community.
Good question.
You're talking about the sponsors?
Yeah, the sponsors, yeah.
Because that's big too.
Well, none of that. Does any of that really go to the community? I feel like it only goes to the team. And it's like, it's a classic case of the richer get richer and the poorer get poorer.
Yeah, the Bronx is still the Bronx, and the Meadowlands is still a swamp. I'm sorry if you live there, but the Meadowlands is...
God.
But basically, as I said before, there's also these arenas that, aren't really going to be used. There's the Bird's Nest in Beijing, which was a beautiful stadium they had for the 2008 Beijing Olympics. And really, it hasn't been used much. It's only been like weddings and stuff. The 76 Montreal Olympics, I actually talked about this in a class, so that's why I have all these notes in front of me. The 76 Montreal Olympics was supposed to cost $120 million. Yeah, the price tag rose to $1.6 billion. It took 30 years to pay off.
Dang.
Wow.
So basically, it's like you have all these, is the cost of hosting a competition like this worth it? I mean, let's look at Qatar. Qatar shouldn't even have the World Cup.
Yeah,
and now
the literal slave labor that they've been using to build those stadiums for the World Cup.
Well, not just that. There's the human rights part of it. There's, moving out people, for the sake of building stadiums and making them homeless, basically. There's bribery because they fired a number of FIFA workers that they caught and, allegedly they had taken bribes or something like that to get to, Qatar hosting World Cup. There's terrorism fears. There's the banning of alcohol. They're going to ban alcohol in the stadiums.
Which is stupid, in my opinion. I mean, if Amina and Summer could comment on this with this topic of banning alcohol, because let's face it, I think when you go to a game, you want to drink something, and I know they cost a lot of money, which is like $10 or $11 for beer, when you can probably go to a bar and get it for like $6 or $5, depending on where the location is. But that's where they get the money for the stadium, and that's how they attract customers into watching the game, if anything.
Charging people to get drunk, it
is the biggest crime. But when they get a lot of money, no one's gonna say anything.
Yeah, it's not about black or white or any kind of color to these people other than the color green.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I mean, as I said, hosting the events is kind of I mean, I do like what North America is doing with 2026, how basically they're taking the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It's like a combined bid, and they're going to host the event throughout North America. That would be basically the 2026 bid. And, I mean, it would be a little hell on the athletes with all the travel and stuff, but it's going to save that money, from the IOC or FIFA can't step in and go, oh, no, we want this, this, and this. It's like, what can they really do? We have the means. The United States, Canada, and Mexico have the means to put on that. So any other move by FIFA for that's just bribery and corruption and flexing.
It is. I have this last question for you. You think the future of the stadiums with building all this in Los Angeles and other places, you think that's going to have a big time effect possibly in the future, like let's say 10 years from now, from other cities, even the smaller ones?
I mean, it could if the owners and the commissioners only see green.
Yeah,
it could. And I mean, we talked about just now about the gates and stuff, and like how it's more enjoyable watching. That's the thing about the NFL. I've never gone to a college football game or an NFL game.
Wow.
I enjoy watching them from the comfort of my own home.
You're missing out. I was thinking. I mean, I went to one, and it was pretty intense. Like, it was just passionate compared to like watching on TV. But I get your point.
But I don't think I'm going to be a little bit more cynical here, and I say these owners will still continue to use public funds because the only thing sweeter than buying something is buying something that you didn't have to pay for. In fact, it's almost like charging people. Actually, well, you know what it is? You get mugged, you beat off the robber, and then the robber sues you because he didn't get.
Wow.
And the robber wins in court.
Oh,
yeah. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Unspoken Podcast, our special Unspoken Roundtable. Go like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Periscope at the UDUP. Want to thank our guests one more time for coming on and joining us. It was fun.
Summer, Raymond, Amina.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So with that, for everyone here, including Nick Fodera, Amina, Summer, Raymond, I'm Albano, and we'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Unspoken Podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.